And we're live once again. Good evening, folks. Mobile Geezer here. Welcome to Friday Night Tech Talk. And if you're new here, this is a tech show that we pick some articles every week to talk about. We talk about it in the comments mainly. And I try to find articles that other people like myself who are somewhat tech heads and might find interesting, and articles that you haven't seen all over the place. Although, if there's a big event, I try to make that the highlighted article, and we've got one this week with the OnePlus 15. And here's Eleanor, first one in. Always glad to have you. You and Brian have always been the first ones here lately. That's great. And I just said you and Brian are the first ones here lately, and Brian comes right in on cue. That's awesome. So as I said, we do this every week. If you're new here, please type something in the comments and let us know where you're from. Going to be a little bit, maybe controversial. I don't know if it's going to be controversial tonight, but the OnePlus 15 has sparked some very varied comments and articles and videos. So we're going to get into that. But every week I pick out some, and also I should let you know that if you follow this QR code up here, it'll take you straight to the show notes for tonight's show, and you can follow along in the articles, and that's always on my website. So let's go take a look at that as I show you that every week. So share screen, go to the window. Why do I have two of them there? Okay. So, if you go to my website, mobilegeezer.wordpress.com, and just click on today's date, you'll get just the show notes for tonight's show. And I guess we've got Ellie in here. We've got Eleanor, Brian, and Ellie. Where's the happy here? And okay. So while we're at my website and we have the show notes up, so remember you can just come to the website or you can click on the QR code and follow that to the website. So as I do every week, I'll give you a little preview of the stories we're going to go over. I have checked to see if we had anything from TED, not yet. So as I do every week, I'll give you a little preview of what we're going to go over. First one, private video or audio recording. We should all be aware of the rules. I found this article on CNET, and I think it's probably true. We should all be aware of the rules if we're recording anybody, either with video, either on our own or at work. And each state has different rules. So it's probably a good idea for us to kind of know those rules. So we'll go over that first. Then, the big one of the week. Yesterday, the OnePlus 15 was announced. It's not quite being sold yet in the U.S., but that's because of the government shutdown. And now that's over. We probably will have it in a few days. Right now, if you go to OnePlus's U.S. site, you can sign up to be notified. So, I said the OnePlus 15 release reviews are wildly diversified, and boy, isn't that the truth. Now, I've got this Phone Arena review, which is kind of positive, but I've been over a number of reviews, and boy, is there both sides. I followed that up with another one, I just said this router defends and admires the OnePlus 15 design. So it's got a new design that's different than the OnePlus 13. So I thought I'd go over that. And right after that, I said, then we'll talk about it. Because I made myself some notes, and you'll probably see me following the notes, which I have in front of me on the desk. But I went through a number of videos of reviews and very, very different opinions, especially about the cameras, which kind of everything is centered on. So we'll go over that. Then, and I seem to be stuck on CNET and Phone Arena today. That's all I've got. All my stories came from CNET or Phone Arena. So after that, AI and copyright violation. So I found the discussion for CNET. And it's very interesting because we know there's been a lot of suing going on about OpenAI and others stealing content from like the Wall Street Journal, which they haven't paid for. Not the Wall Street Journal, New York Times. So, interesting article. Next up, probably most of you know, the United States pretty much banned Huawei and ZTE, 5, 6, 7 years ago. But now the EU is pushing for a ban on Huawei and ZTE networks. And both of them are some of the biggest network companies in the world. And I think Europe has a lot of the networks. Most of their networks, I think, throughout Europe are probably from Huawei and ZTE. So taking them down, it's going to be a big thing. But we'll take a look at that article, again, on Phone Arena. And finally, I said, as more and more Android OEMs copy iPhone, and that seems to be the thing, they all seem to be copying iPhone right now, one writer objects. So we'll take a look at that, and that'll be it for tonight. So back to the top. I'll certainly let you guys know if Ted happens to come in. Last week, he did let us know in the comments that he wasn't going to make it. So we'll see what happens. So I always try to make the big story the second story to give people time to get in. So we'll start with private video or audio recording. We should all be aware of the rules. And as I said, it's on CNET. Is it legal to record audio or video on a home security camera? Here are the rules. Here's what the law says about recording on your security cameras and when it may violate privacy or cause other problems. And that's by Tyler Lacoma, and it's from September 3rd. I just thought it'd be an interesting article that we can all learn from. So let's drop into review, get rid of these ads. The core purpose of a security camera is to keep eyes on your home, but how do privacy laws affect their use? You should know if you could get in trouble before getting a security camera that could watch anyone from joggers on the street to babysitters in your home. The good news is that your security monitoring should be fine in most cases, especially with a little common sense. But there are rules everyone should know before using live views or downloading video clips. Let's start with the concept of public spaces. Public versus private surveillance. First, let's talk about the most important rule when recording video anywhere. The standard that the courts have widely adopted is called the reasonable expectation of privacy. And it's very, very important. And that kind of makes good common sense. You can generally set up security cams in your home as you please, but you can't interfere with someone's reasonable expectation of privacy. In practice, that comes down to how people tend to use rooms. Pardon me. Surveilling living rooms, entryways, kitchens, or dining rooms is fine because those rooms are more public spots used by everyone in the house and are generally highly visible. However, setting up a cam to record video in a bedroom, bathroom, or changing room is usually considered illegal without explicit consent. I don't think anybody's going to give you that, even in your own home. Well, not in their, let's say, bathroom. People expect a higher level of privacy in these areas, and the law agrees. Minor dependent limitations also apply. Parents can monitor their baby's bedroom, for example. But when in doubt, apply the rule of reasonable expectation of privacy. Very good common sense. If you do need cams in more private areas, consider disabling them when guests are over. And that's something I'm thinking most people are not going to remember to do that, but maybe some people will. That's certainly good advice. The expectation of privacy is even more important if neighbors are pointing security cameras at you. No one can film you without your permission on private property, like filming your backyard. And I've seen in the past articles about people arguing about that in backyards, or through your windows. Yeah, nobody should be allowed to do that. One versus two-party consent. Now, here's the state laws, where they're different. Now, let's turn to the big rule in audio recording, which is your local consent laws. Because of the Federal Wiretap Act and similar legislation, states are divided into one-party and two-party / all parties, the same thing really, consent laws. In a one-party consent state such as Colorado, Tennessee, which is where Eleanor and I live, or Texas, one side of the conversation needs to give consent to be recorded, which makes it legal to record telephone calls you are part of, in theory, two-way audio conversations you have through a camera. So if you're on the call, well, you're the one party, so you're allowed to go ahead and record it, even without the other person's permission, in Colorado, Tennessee, and Texas. In two-party consent states such as California, Florida, or Michigan, both or all sides need to give their consent to have their conversation. It says conservation. Conversation recorded. It is never legal to record a conversation where no one is giving consent. So even in the one state, you got to make sure you're the one giving consent, then you're good to go. This consent is usually a verbal affirmation at the beginning of a call. Yeah, that would be in two-party or more. Or a separate acknowledgement that consent was given. Justia has a guide breaking down the rules by individual state where you can find more information. So if you come to the website, you can click on that and get more information. Just something good to know, especially for the state you live in. 4 tips to record video in your home. Let's break down video capture. A primary goal of installing a security camera in your home. Today's cameras use motion detection and frequently have video storage options to automatically save video clips both to local storage and the cloud when they see people. These steps will help you know what to do. Step 1, review your state laws. Laws about surveillance can vary by state, so if you want to stay safe, you need to start by looking up the laws in your own state. State websites, local law firms, and others will often summarize these laws for you to save time. Here's a breakdown of California's law as an example, so you can click on that if you're in California, if you want to know what California's laws are. States may have specific laws about hiding security cameras, how you can use security camera recordings in court, and if you need permits for specific kinds of security cameras. A few minutes of reading up can give you important parameters to follow. Yeah, I would think it would be pretty easy to go to a state website and get this information. For example, the California law mentioned above has specific language about intent to invade privacy and intent to view the body or undergarments, here, not cool, that can help clarify what's not allowed. Step 2, follow the reasonable expectation of privacy. Don't record video in any area where people expect privacy. Keep recordings focused on common areas such as entryways, porches, and primary rooms. In other words, keep it out of the bathroom, I would think. Step 3, for renters, let the owner know about cameras. Property owners broadly have the right to install security cameras on their private property, including homes that they own. They don't usually need a permit either. If you aren't the property owner, the law gets less comfortable with you recording video. When renting, contact the owner of the property if you want to install a security camera and notify them, getting written permission if possible. Sometimes leases will have more specific information on who is in charge of security systems, while other leases have more leeway. Tenants usually have the right to install their own security cameras to watch over the personal space they're legally renting, but letting the owner know can prevent future issues. Step 4. Notify guests about cameras, including short-term rentals. If you have guests over, hire a nanny, or have a friend staying over for a couple of weeks, let them know that you have security cameras no matter where they are. It's polite and it avoids any chance you could be accused of hiding cameras and recording without consent. Important note, other regulations can apply in certain circumstances. The best example is Airbnb, which in March 2024 banned all use of indoor security cameras, video doorbells, etc. should be fined by Airbnb hosts. Didn't know that. Previously, Airbnb had allowed the use of indoor cams in some regions as long as guests were notified. The rules changed, which is why it's important to look up the details if you aren't sure about the law. Yeah, I would think if you're renting in an Airbnb, you're going to want to know that. 4 tips to record audio in your home. Audio recording is a different beast than video recording. It has more legal implications and is traditionally often used as evidence in courts. When audio is involved, people have extra protections. Our rules will help you stay within the bounds of the law. Step 1, review your state laws, but even closer this time. Find out if your state is a one-party or two-party consent state, yeah, that's important, and check if it has any specific language about recording audio, wiretapping, and similar situations. Step 2, exercise caution if your cam can record audio. Cam apps often allow you to record audio. If you have a Ring Protect plan, for example, you can usually record and download video and audio from a Ring doorbell, then keep it or share it with others. Eufy also gives you the option to record audio when a video is recorded. But recording audio without consent risks crossing an audio law red line, even if it's automatic. It's often up to users to go into apps and disable audio functions for legal safety. Even if a home cam theoretically saved incriminating audio, it might not be usable in court and could lead to countersuits or other problems. Step 3, get or give consent for any recording. If you really want to record audio, find a device that can do it and make sure people are given consent to be recorded. We suggest getting permission from both sides of a conversation, even in one-party consent states, just to stay safe and polite. This is how phone interviews are conducted, for example. Step 4, avoid false pretenses when recording someone. Federal law prohibits recording conversations with criminal or malicious intent, and many state laws confirm that with similar wording. Avoid any accidental appearance of blackmail, or similar scheming. That includes any effort to try and trick someone into having a certain conversation or saying certain words or pretending to be someone you aren't while talking to another person. It says that we live in a time when that's probably quite prevalent. What about outdoor security cameras? Outdoor security cameras are still on your property, or they should be, and they typically fall under the same laws as indoor cameras, as long as security cameras generally face public spots, the front of your home, sidewalks, and streets. They fall well within the law. If you're the owner, you have the right to film your backyard and other parts of your property too. However, You cannot film areas where other people have a reasonable expectation of privacy. I would think, yeah, you can't just record people walking down the street. That means you cannot film a neighbor's backyard or angle a camera so that it can record through their windows. Yeah. Many cameras have privacy zones and other tricks you can use to avoid even the appearance of spying on someone. The same rules for audio apply to outdoor cameras. You'll need one-party or two-party consent to record conversations. Security companies skip that hassle by only allowing live audio. That's why you can talk through your video doorbell, for instance, but can't set it up to record conversations. That makes sense. Finally, if you are renting, make sure to stop by our guide on the best security devices and tips if you're living with roommates, which can create another set of headaches when people start encroaching on your personal space. Yeah, it makes sense. So, just good for us to know, and like I said, probably very easy to look up your state. I just thought that was a good one to start with. And nothing new in the comments. So, let's see. We're going to go on to the big stuff, at least to me, the big stuff of the week. So yesterday was the OnePlus 15 release and presentation. The OnePlus 15 release. Reviews are wildly diversified. So I've got a Phone Arena review, and we'll go through that and the next one. Then I'll go over the notes that I have. So, and of course, this came out yesterday. OnePlus 15 review. The Underdog is Back by Victor Ristov. So let's go to review. Come on. Thank you. I've lost count of how many times OnePlus has tried to crack the three-company stronghold in the U.S. smartphone market. This year, the company is trying something slightly different, a much earlier launch of its new flagship, the OnePlus 15. While previously OnePlus stood out with bold original designs for its phones, the OnePlus 15 now looks completely and utterly generic. That's true. The signature alert slider is also gone, and some people are kind of upset about that, replaced by a programmable button. Yet this shift towards practicality comes with upsides too. The OnePlus 15 feels sturdier than before, and it beats Samsung to the punch with the latest Snapdragon chipset months ahead of the expected Galaxy S26 series. OnePlus has also ended its Hasselblad partnership. Some people seem to think that's okay. Some people really don't like it. But read on and you'll be surprised that image quality has not suffered one bit. And there's big disagreement about that. In fact, it has improved in several key areas, more disagreements. And we'll get to that. Best of all, the OnePlus 15 remains refreshingly affordable for a flagship, starting at just $900 compared to $1,300 for Samsung's Galaxy Ultra. Let's see if it's worth it. The OnePlus 15 official U.S. release date is still in flux due to the recent government shutdown. And I said, probably a few days, you'll be getting a notification if you signed up that it's now up for sale in the U.S. and pending FCC certification. And that's while the government was shut down, they couldn't get the FCC to certify it. But we expect it to arrive sooner rather than later. And I told you guys that I'd probably be getting it. Well, now I've gone away from that. So just wanted you guys to know. Here's Renz. Hey, Renz, glad you got here 2 weeks in a row. Very happy about that. Glad you're here. I know you're probably at work. So I'm going over the big story of the week, which, of course, was the OnePlus 15 release yesterday. And I kept saying I was going to probably trade in my OnePlus 12, which is the main phone that I took to work today, mainly because I'm wearing my OnePlus 2 watch, and my backup phone was my iPhone 17. But I'm probably not going to pick up the OnePlus 15, or almost certainly not. And we'll discuss why in a little bit. So let's get through this article. OnePlus 15 is here. The phone ships with a $100 discount. Any phones, trade-ins, any condition. And you can also save up to $899, which is the price of device, with eligible device trade-ins. The device also comes with a free gift worth up to $299. On top of that, users who reserve will save an extra $50. Yeah, anybody who signs up is going to get that extra $50 savings. And the phone isn't available for pre-order right now, but that's in the U.S. But you can subscribe. It is available in other places. And OnePlus will notify you when it becomes available. In our Phone Arena review rating, the OnePlus excels in areas like performance and battery life. Yeah, everybody seems to agree about that. But loses a bit in the software update department, and the lack of QI2 charging is also a concern. So we just drop right down to the specs and just keep on going. Let's start with an overview of the OnePlus 15 specs. So here's the OnePlus 15, here's the OnePlus 13. Now I'm going to drop it. Oh, here's Don. Hey, Don, glad to have you in here, brother. So now we've got Texas in here, and we've got the Philippines in here. And of course, we've got New York and Tennessee in here. So we're doing good. So I'm going to drop this out of the reader view just till I get these, because you see these side by side. And then I'll drop back into reader view. So let's drop it out. And let's get down to there and let you see that side by side spec stuff. Okay, let's start with specs. So OnePlus 15, OnePlus 13. Design 161, dimensions, not much different. Weight, very little difference. Display, 6.8 inch on a 115, same display size. AMOLED, now get this, the OnePlus 15, AMOLED 165 hertz, and on the OnePlus 13, which I don't have it with me, 120 hertz. But there's a key. The 165 hertz only works if you're playing games that have 165, and they give you a list. So you don't get that in any other way. And MKBHD made a big deal about that. So, just trying to let Brian and everybody say hi to Renz. Okay. Now, hardware. Oh, and also the screens themselves. The OnePlus 13 had a 1440 by 1440, but the OnePlus 15 is a little less, and we'll get to that. I got that down later. System chip, Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5. This is the first one in the US using the new chip. And of course, the 13 had the 8 Elite from this year. Memory, USF 4.1, 4.0, of course. So this side is 15, this side is 13. Okay. 16 gigabytes, 256, where the 13 was 12 gigabytes, 512. And over here, to go, when you go up to 12 gigabyte, 512, now you're up to $1,000 rather than $900. Android 16, of course, Android 15. And mine has already been updated to Android 16, my OnePlus 13. So pretty much everybody that has it should already have 16. And I think my 12, I saw a note the other day that the 12 was ready to be upgraded. I'm not sure that I don't think I upgraded mine yet, but the 16 is there for that also. Anyway, camera, 50 megapixel, same up here. Now, Apertures are smaller and focal and sensor size is smaller on the 15, and that's causing huge discussion. 15 f1.8 and 13 f1.6, so better size. Focal length 24, 23. Sensor size 1.156, 1.153. Better size on the 13 again. Let's see. Don says he's living in McKinney. You've moved all around the Dallas area. Well, I mean, you lived in Oklahoma for a while. I know that. Okay. That's the main camera. Second camera, ultra wide, aperture size the same, blah, blah, blah. Third camera, telephoto periscope, same up here, but optical zoom 3.5, optical zoom 3.0. So the 15, of course, is better. Aperture size f2.8, f2.6. So the OnePlus 13 is better. Front 32 megapixel. Design and display. I've heard, let's go back into reader view. Top down. Just easier to read without the ads. All right, design and display. I've already complained about the looks. The OnePlus 15 looks quite simply generic. There is no real personality in this phone. Instead, it just tries to look like an iPhone. And the next article kind of talks about that. To be fair, it mostly succeeds in that. In other words, looking like an iPhone with flat sides and now a completely flat screen. I did prefer the slightly tapered size on previous OnePlus phones, but a flat screen has benefits. Yeah, I like flat screens better myself. Installing a screen protector is finally effortless. Yeah, much easier with a flat screen. Size-wise, the OnePlus 15 is a big phone, roughly matching the iPhone Pro Max model in both dimensions and weight. One funny change is how OnePlus is going from avoiding IP. Yeah, remember, OnePlus used to avoid all kinds of IP certifications because it cost too much. Well, now they've gone completely the other way. Avoiding IP certifications to cut costs to now adding every IP rating imaginable. The OnePlus 15 is officially IP68, IP69, and IP69K, and everybody, including MKBHD, Tech Guys, they're all saying they never heard of that one. So now they're extremely protected, water and dust protected. Compared to most other flagships that stop at IP68, the OnePlus can survive deeper immersion, as deep as 2 meters, while others can do 1.5 meters. It is also protected from high-pressure water jets, but the only barely practical application for this, if you forget your phone in your jeans and put them in a washing machine, and it's supposed to, I guess the IP69K will survive very hot water jets. So they've covered everything in this one. Vince says, I still like the OnePlus 13S better because of the size it just made. Yeah, I still love my OnePlus 13, and that's what I'll be sticking with. I hope you're doing okay after that. Absolutely. Okay. So supposedly you should be able to put it in a washing machine and, I guess let it go through and it'd be just fine. So it's got every kind of protection. You have 3 colorways to choose from. Trinity Black, which comes with a matte glass back that doesn't show fingerprints, and then you have the Sandstorm model and the ultraviolet one. So a lot of people like the Sandstorm, but those who've seen the black up close say it's really, really nice. OnePlus 15 comes in a big box flaunting the signature red color of the brand. And apart from the phone, the usual manual and the usual user manuals, you can also find both a charger and charging cable. That's unusual. Most brands these days skip the charger, but not OnePlus. Keep in mind that you need to use this particular OnePlus branded charger to get the fastest charging speeds on the phone, but more on that in the charging section. And yes, it does charge really, really, really fast. So there's your 6.8 OLED screen. And then you have display measurements. So do I need to draw? I don't think I need to drop out for this. Okay. Oh, yeah, and I gather the 3472. So you can, it really, really, really gets bright. So let's see. The most impressive number here, no, it's 3,500 nits of peak brightness. That's a lot of brightness. Beating iPhones and Pixels, which top out around 2,800 nits, the OnePlus 15 gets really bright indeed. However, we also noticed that it picks up a lot of reflections. One of the reviews I saw was really complaining about the reflections. Recent Galaxy Ultra models have handled reflections exceptionally well, and even the iPhone 17 series have some form of anti-reflective coating. And in the video that I was watching, they specifically pointed out that the Galaxies and the iPhones have anti-reflective coating, and this doesn't, and you pay for it because of how it reflects. The OnePlus 15 doesn't, and that's one improvement we really wanted to see, and which affects the real-world outdoor visibility of the display. Oops. Minimum brightness is another key factor for nighttime use, and the lower the score, the better. The OnePlus 15 does not quite get dim enough, dropping to around 2 nits, while iPhones and Galaxies dip below 1 nit, making them easier on the eyes at night. And yes, one of the reviews did mention that in their video. For biometrics, you have the usual and ultrasonic fingerprint scanner and image-based face recognition via the front camera. Both work, I think, you've been fine. And the fingerprint feels nice and zippy, and we've had no issues with it. Ben's is saying the typhoon didn't hit us, but it hit the northern part of the Philippines, and a lot of people there were affected because of flood and power outage. Thanks for this concern. Yeah, prayers are always with everybody. And I did see some other videos about some of the people that did get hit with the Philippines. Glad you didn't get it by you, Vince. Okay, camera. And this is what most of the big disagreements are about. Same-ish hardware, better looking pictures. Big discrepancies about that. Our iPhone camera score, the OnePlus 15 shows a big leap forward from the previous generation. Not everybody thinks so. It's now in the big leagues. With a total score of 151 points, it outperforms its predecessor by nearly 6 points. Most of that progress comes from improvements to photography, and particularly in detail rendition, while video recording quality sees a much smaller improvement. MKBHD really, really disagrees with that. The camera hardware of the OnePlus 15 can be best described as a side grade. Some components have been swapped out, but mostly for similar alternatives. The main 50 megapixel sensor remains 1/1.6 inch size, smaller than the 1/1.3 inch sensors you commonly find on Pro Max iPhones and Ultra Galaxies. Both the ultra-wide and telephoto cameras use 50 megapixel sensors too. Yeah, the 50 megapixel all the way around. A key functional upgrade is the switch to 26 megapixel default resolution. Yeah, a lot of people made a bit in their videos talking about that. The main camera photos, but only on the main camera, up from 12 megapixel on previous OnePlus phones. So what everybody said that, yes, if you're using the main camera, your default resolution is going to go 26, but the other cameras, it's still 12 megapixels. That results in a noticeable improvement in detail. The telephoto camera is now a W-style periscope lens with a 3.5x optical zoom and a 7x high-quality zoom preset. camera samples. So they down here. Let's drop it out of reader view to see if we see camera samples. I don't remember. Sorry for holding things up, folks. Just don't want you guys to miss it. Okay, yeah, here's our camera samples. So we couldn't see them in reader view. So we got 14 here, so let's just flip through them. So this is all of the samples. That's pretty good. They do look nice, but from what I gather, if you put them up against the 13, that's probably going to win, at least in some people's opinion. And a lot of people don't like the night photos. They do, I believe. So just wanted to let you guys see it. We flip through those. We go back to reader view. And get back down there. Hope I'm not boring you people with this. I'm just trying to make sure we see everything. The most talked about change is OnePlus dropping the Hasselblad logo and turning to its Detail Max proprietary image. Well, basically, they've dropped Hasselblad entirely. Comparing photos from the older model to the new one, we actually think that's an improvement. Huge disagreements about that. I think this should say gone is the excessive over-sharpening of the previous model, and detail is now softer in a much more pleasing and natural way. Colors also consistently skew warmer and slightly more saturated than in real life. Now, the two big guys that I've seen disagree with that are MKBHD and Juan Bagnell, some gadget guy, both of whom I think really know what they're talking about. So, nighttime photos often came up with some wild, oversaturated colors. Yeah, and a number of video reviewers didn't like the nighttime photos. Zoom quality has improved to you have a good amount of detail at the native 3.5x and 7x zoom levels. You can reach 120x digital zoom, but even after 20x, AI kicks in aggressively to reduce noise, and that often results in AI slop when you have text in the image and a clearly fake look to the detail. And a couple of them, I said, once you go past 7x, it starts to blow up pretty bad, which is kind of normal with cameras. But I saw that in a couple of reviews. Color consistency between lenses needs work, though. So they're praising them, but at the same time, I don't think they think all that highly of it. Let's see, Elma. Thank God you and your family are okay. We pray for people affected by the typhoon. He says thanks. Okay. When it comes to the experience in the Photos app, we still see some important features missing, like the ability to turn a regular photo into a portrait mode one. In terms of filters, you don't have anything quite as powerful as photographic styles on an iPhone, but no Android phone does. OnePlus provides some simulation filters with an adjustable strength, but nothing too special. Video quality. The headline feature in video recording is 4K 120 support for the buttery smooth slow motion capture. Regular 4K 30, 4K 60 footage has also improved from the predecessor. On the OnePlus 15, HDR artifacts are gone, and both detail and color rendition are just a bit more pleasing natural. So they really seem to like the cameras. Others don't. All right, so I'm not going to go to the performance and benchmark. So generally, they have a pretty high opinion of it. So I'm going to go to the next article because I tried to be fair about the people who actually like it. And both of these articles, they do. Again, this is from Phone Arena, but different writer. I said, this writer defends and admires the OnePlus 15 design. I gather a lot of people don't like the design change. So everyone says OnePlus lost its way. I don't think everyone says that, but I guess some people are saying that. But I say it finally found it. So it found its way. Some call it a sellout. I call it the right step forward because they're saying it's trying to look too much like iPhone. And this was from 4 days ago by Alexander Anastasov. Yeah, I said it kind of smooth for once. Guess I'm getting used to saying some of these names. All right, into reader view we go. I've read the complaints. The alert slider is gone. Yeah, MKBHC was really upset about that. Renz, thank you so much as usual. So you're very kind. The Hasselblad logo has vanished. The design looks generic, and the software looks suspiciously Apple-like. Many people are saying that. To longtime fans, it's the end of the old OnePlus, that daring flagship killer. But maybe that transformation is not a failure. Maybe it's exactly the kind of skin shedding needed to move up the ladder and compete with Samsung, Google, and Apple. And that could be true. For years, OnePlus tried to prove that it's not just another Android brand. It challenged the big three with swagger, specs, and speed. For a while, that meant being the rebel, then transformed into being the experimental one. Yeah, you remember the camera that came up in the 7 Plus? I thought that was awesome. Enthusiasts love a rebellion, but the mass market rewards polish and trust. And OnePlus seems to have finally understood that. Renz is going back to work. Thank you so much, Renz. So glad you were here. Don is saying, yeah, I can pronounce the names because of all the yeah, and I've been following tennis players for 50 years now, so yeah, that probably is true. I'm very used to the Russian names and a lot of the names. A new design language, not a lost one. Yes, the curves are gone. The familiar swooping edges of previous models are now history, and honestly, it's about time. So he likes it. They not only look dated, but are fragile and harder to protect. The OnePlus 15's flat aluminum frame is cleaner, sturdier, and far more practical. The micro-oxidation coating adds a subtle matte texture and, more importantly, makes the frame stronger than standard aluminum. Yes, because that coating is also on the sides of the phone. So they're saying you get the same grip as the back, which people seem to like, and I can understand that. I also love the more understated look this time around. The design no longer screams for attention. It simply looks refined. The sandstorm finish might not shimmer like past color options, but it feels far more modern. And let's be honest, that oversized circular camera island was long overdue for retirement. Its absence alone makes the design look sleeker and more professional. So I guess people were tired of that big circle. Still the fastest, but now smarter about it. Performance has always been OnePlus's comfort zone, and the 15 doubles down on that legacy, but with more AI thrown in the mix. Brian, thank you as always, sir. You're very, very faithful. Yes, the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 is outstandingly powerful, but the more important part here is the phone's thermal management. And again, this is another place where there's big arguments. The 3D vapor chamber cooling system OnePlus has developed is especially exciting, as we all know how hard it is to keep Qualcomm's latest chip cool. If OnePlus pulls it off, the OnePlus 15 could show even better performance compared to the Galaxy S25 Ultra. According to some people, which I'll mention later, they didn't pull it off, and the phone got so hot that he couldn't even hold it anymore. So like I said, big differences in the way people perceive this. The AI button controversy that doesn't need to be one. Let's talk about the new Plus key. Yes, it replaces the alert slider, and yes, at first it might feel wrong. Yeah, people are just used to the alert slider. I myself was a huge fan of the slider during my time with the OnePlus 3 and 6, but phones have evolved beyond simple sound profiles. The plus key is a programmable control that integrates with Oxygen OS 16's contextual AI, meaning it can do a lot more than silence notifications. It can trigger smart routines, control apps, or pull up information mid-task. I get that it might be a bit more inconvenient if you solely intend on using it for sound control, but it opens up the door to so many other quality of life improvements. The Canva conversation that misses the point. Yes, Hasselblad is gone, and yes, the partnership gave OnePlus a bit more credibility. But the truth is that such collaborations almost never resulted in any meaningful benefits. Well, people think it did here, especially when it came to OnePlus and Hasselblad. So I guess he didn't think they benefited from it. A lot of other people think they did. I think they did too. I am genuinely excited to see what OnePlus will do with its new Detail Max engine. It most likely won't deliver impressive results at first, but it is a long-term investment that has a high potential of paying off in the future. Yeah, it's probably an ongoing thing. It will be interesting to see how this new image processing system works in tandem with the upgraded IMX906 main sensor and the new 3.5x telephoto camera, a combination that might finally give OnePlus a stronger foothold among top-tier camera phones. The one gripe I have, Oxygen OS. Some Android manufacturers have made a sport out of copying Apple, and the latest obsession is the liquid glass aesthetic of iOS 26. Yet it seems like a lot of Android are copying that. Unfortunately, OnePlus has started to dip into that pool too. It's not all bad though, and I've got an article coming up about that later too. The categorized after another iOS-inspired move actually works well, and I'm not going to fault OnePlus for improving usability. Oxygen OS is already great. It's sharp, confident, minimal without being sterile. There's no need to imitate other UIs just to make it feel relevant. Well, everybody's going to copy it. Well, almost everybody going to copy the iPhone. It's Big House. Glad you're here, sir. We're going over the OnePlus 15, and this is my second article on it. Both the articles that I picked from Phone Arena from two different writers really genuinely seem to like the phone and the cameras. And I've got others. I've been through a bunch of videos and reviews that not so much, but I'm going to get to that in a minute. Glad you're here, as always. All right, the end of the underdog era. What's really happening here is that OnePlus stopped playing the underdog. The never settle slogan used to mean undercutting everyone. Now it means matching them. Fans might miss the scrappy charm of the early days, but nostalgia doesn't keep the lights on. So no, OnePlus didn't forget what made it special. It just stopped clinging to it. This isn't the end of the never settle era. It's just proof that OnePlus finally took its own slogan seriously. And that's probably true. So those are the two articles I picked out just for that. But I did make myself some notes about some of the ones that I did watch and convince me, because I kept saying I was going to trade in. Let me stop sharing for a minute. So I did say I was going to trade in the OnePlus 12, and that's what was my main phone that I took to work today. Tomorrow I'll be switching to the OnePlus 13 because I'll be going from the OnePlus Watch 2 to the 3. But I have some notes that I made here. The cameras have smaller sensors and smaller apertures, which I showed you in the first article. Juan Bagnell, some gadget guy. One thing is the battery is huge on this thing, which you say 7,000 something. And Juan was the one person that said with his normal use, he got 3 days of use from the battery. So I thought that was very important. Everybody's raving about the battery, as I guess well they should. Juan and MKBHD are two people I really, really trust when it comes to their opinions. cameras, one said cameras are stepped down from the 13, especially in low light. So that was his overall opinion of the cameras. Tech Odyssey. He seems to like the cameras, but he said the low light was inconsistent, but the cameras were okay. MKBHD. He really seemed to hate the cameras. And he made the point that the display itself went from 1440p on the 13 to 1272 on the 15. He was upset about the alert slider, but he says, matter of preference. But he said the cameras are a big downgrade, and he really, really stressed that point. He said that it's so much of a downgrade, the cameras are the same as the $400 Honor 200. So, GSM Arena, they said the cameras are just lower quality in general. Jaime Rivera, and they all say that daylight photos are great. Jaime really liked the daylight photos a lot. And he said night photos, not so good, but the selfies were good. And finally, Android Authority said buy the 13 and said pretty much everybody said if you have the 13, there's, do not upgrade to the 15. Well, I have the 12 and 13. I was going to trade this in for the 15, but I don't think I'm going to, and I wasn't going to get it until January probably anyway. But I think I'm just going to skip it and keep my 13. Android Authority said the performance is faster, but not as fast as Qualcomm claims it is. And they said it got extremely hot during their normal testing. In other words, the testing they do with all the phones. But they said he said it got so hot he couldn't even hold it anymore. And then he said, oh, you might think that'll just happen on one phone. But he said Android Authority had two phones and it happened exactly the same with both phones. So there's some disagreements about how hot the phone gets. But they said it got extremely hot. So I just wanted to go over my notes with that because people that I trust were making that point. The trade on my OnePlus 12, I believe Big House, it said, I went over that today. I believe it said it would be $286, which would be okay if I thought if the cameras were an upgrade from the 13, but I don't. So I think I'm just going to skip it altogether. Now, if they come up with a great sale in the next 6 months, whatever, and I can still trade in my OnePlus 12, I'll probably go for it. But as it is now, I'm probably just going to skip it because I tend to trust what Juan says and what MKBHD says about the cameras. So that's just for me. So I was hoping I'd get more on the trade-in for the 12. I'm sure if I trade in the 13, I'd get a pretty decent price, but I don't want to trade in the 13. So that's where we are with both of those. I mean, with both of those articles. And I wanted to let you guys know why I was skipping the, because I was surprised. It came out to, I'm pretty sure it came out to like $286. Okay, if I could get $400 for it, maybe January, February, I might get it. But I'm thinking right now, I'm just going to bypass it. So let me go back to sharing screen and we'll go on to our next article. But that was the big stuff of the week, so I just wanted to go over that with you guys. So it looks like no TED this week. Now we got what I always think are the interesting articles that you guys haven't seen everywhere, I hope. AI and copyright violation. And this is the discussion that I found on CNET. Another one I just thought was really interesting. We all know that OpenAI and a whole bunch of others have been sued and accused of stealing all kinds of people's data, and I think they have. AI has sent copyright laws into chaos. What you need to know about your rights online. Copyright is one of the most important legal issues in the age of AI and affects all of us, and that's true. And you guys should know, in my music career, I have copyrighted over 300 songs, so I kind of know something about copyrights. So this was written by, this one I'm going to have a hard time with. This one was written by Caitlin Chedroy. I'm just butchering it. Don't think I'm going to get it. So it's from 3 days ago. So let's drop it into Reader View. Let's use Dark Reader View this time. Okay. You might not think about copyright very often, but we are all copyright owners and authors. In the age of generative AI, copyright has quickly become one of the most important issues in the development and outputs of chatbots, image, and video generators. Sadly, copyright and AI are something of a mess. That's because they keep stealing. The race to develop the most advanced AI models show no sign of slowing anytime soon. In order to create those next-gen models, tech companies are looking for a lot of high-quality human-generated content, except they don't want to pay for it. They need these works to make their AI models better, whether that's giving a chatbot a more lifelike personality or an image generator more artistic styles to reference. On the flip side, AI enthusiasts might be wondering if it's possible to receive copyright protection for AI-enabled creative works. And when I first saw that sentence, I'm like, well, no, you're not going to get copyright protection for AI stuff. But as we go down, well, I think there's an argument you can make for some of it. So, most AI companies have been very vague about what content they use. Yeah, I wonder why. This is what happens when you're stealing, which has led to more than 30 plus lawsuits winding their way through U.S. courts. You might have heard of some of the most notable, like the New York Times versus OpenAI, in which the publisher alleges that ChatGPT used reported stories verbatim, that's the big thing, without proper attribution or permission. And I definitely think they're going to win that lawsuit. Disclosure, Ziff Davis, CNET's parent company, filed a lawsuit against OpenAI in April, which is, and I gave you that back then when they first did it, alleging it infringed Ziff Davis copyrights in training and operating its AI system. I spent a lot of time thinking about copyright and AI in my work, reporting on AI creative services. I've interviewed intellectual property lawyers, spoken with many concerned creators, and spent way too much time breaking down legalese from government agencies. I've used that experience to make this guide on what you need to know about copyright in the age of AI, which will keep updating as things change. And you know the laws are going to keep changing, but this is good stuff to have a basic idea of anyway. Copyright is a set of express rights that protect original works of authorship fixed in any tangible medium of expression, now known or later developed, from which they can be perceived, reproduced, or otherwise communicated according to the Copyright Act of 1976. In other words, copyright is a legal protection that gives original authors the rights to and control over their original works. Copyright protection can apply to books, art, music, movies, computer programs, blogs, architectural designs, plays, choreography, and more. We're all copyright owners, as the U.S. Copyright Office puts it. Once you create an original work and fix it, I don't understand what they mean by and fix it, like taking a photograph, writing a poem or blog, or recording a new song, you are the author and the owner. Yeah, and you have to register it with the Copyright Office, otherwise you can't prove that. There are a couple of ways copyright intersects with AI. On the output side, people who use AI services like chatbots and image generators want to know whether their AI-enabled work is eligible for copyright protection. I first thought, well, of course not, but maybe they are. On the development side, there are a lot of concerns about AI companies using copyrighted material illegally. Here's what we know so far. Can I copyright an image or text I generated with AI? And I think that's going to be partially true as we go through here. As with many legal questions, the answer is it depends. Our guidance in this question comes primarily from the U.S. Copyright Office, the federal agency in charge of administering copyrights. The office has released a series of reports on AI and copyright with its latest guidance. In the second report, the office maintained its position that images and videos that are entirely generated by AI are not eligible for copyright protection. That's the thing. If AI did it all, then no, you don't get copyright protection. And I agree with that. However, there are a number of generative AI editing tools now available. These tools aren't used for wholesale creation, but they do use AI to do things like add or remove objects, de-age actors, or refine audio and video. So I guess because the person partially came up with it, you can still get a copyright on it. You can still register and potentially receive copyright protection for AI edited content, but you have to disclose your AI use. That makes sense. In the public record portal, you can see in the notes how people use AI in the creation of their copyrighted work. And I can tell you firsthand, the Copyright Office has always done a great job on their website of explaining things, how to do things, and how to go about things, going way back when I first started writing songs back in the 70s. In rare cases, you can receive copyright protection for work that is entirely AI generated, but you have to prove that your input or creative manipulation of those AI-generated elements rises to the level of protection. Here's how one company managed to do that. Can copyrighted content be used to train AI? I'm thinking if you pay for it. The basic premise in copyright law is that the rights holder, usually the original creator, sometimes in other cases it can be a person's employer, that's true, can decide how they want their works used. In many cases, owners choose to license their content. This lets people use copyrighted work for a fee with proper attribution. Mostly with songwriters, you want to record somebody's songs, you pay them and you get to record the song. So if a copyright owner wants to give an AI company permission to use their content to train AI models, there's nothing wrong or illegal about that. That's true. Many publishers, including the Financial Times and Axel Springer brands, have struck multi-million-dollar deals with AI companies to do just that. So they're doing it right, I think, and whatever AI company they're working with. Issues arise when AI companies potentially use copyrighted content without first receiving permission from the copyright holders, like OpenAI did with the New York Times stuff. And that's what creators are alleging happened in many lawsuits, including a class action lawsuit led by concept artist Carla Ortiz against Stability AI. There are currently more than 30 active lawsuits between AI companies and creators over copyright concerns. I'm surprised there's not more, really. Decades of copyright law precedents say that such a use without permission is not allowed. Some of the creators are alleging that the tech companies infringe on their copyrights. Infringement occurs when a copyrighted work is reproduced, distributed, performed, publicly displayed, or made into a derivative work without the permission of the copyright holder, as the Copyright Office defines it. And that's always been pretty clear. It will be up to the court to decide whether the use of copyrighted material in AI development reaches the threshold of infringement. In the meantime, many tech companies are trying to pursue an alternative solution, a fair use exception. And in the past, fair use meant you could use a line or two from something, a few seconds of something, and that's about it. I'll give you a perfect example of a suit where fair use, well, infringement. George Harrison's My Sweet Lord. He did if you remember it, my sweet Lord, ooh, my Lord, my sweet Lord. Well, he got sued by the people who did He's So Fine from 15 years before he ever wrote that song. And why? Because he's so fine, wish he were, it's the same tune. Now, I'm sure George Harrison didn't do that on purpose, but he ended up having to pay them at least $500,000. So, and it just happened. So that's the one big infringement case I'm aware of. What is fair use and what does it have to do with AI? The fair use doctrine is a fundamental part of copyright law, part of the Copyright Act of 1976. Fair use lets people use copyrighted content without the holder's express permission for specific purposes. And if you see videos where you see a flash of somebody from a movie or a cartoon or whatever, if they're saying one line, that's fair use. In the pre-AI era, fair use cases include a teacher using a copyrighted book for educational purposes or a reporter reversing copyrighted work in news coverage. There are 4 factors that help determine whether someone's use can qualify as fair use. The purpose of the use. How would the person use copyrighted material be using it? Commercial interest, whether someone, if they're making money off it, that's kind of important. The nature of the copyrighted work. And when I say if they're making money from it, well, if I make a video and I have these little clips, well, I am making money from it. But if I'm only doing seconds of borrowing something, that's usually okay and considered fair use. The nature of the copyrighted work. What is the actual format of the disputed work? Is it factual, like a newspaper article, or highly creative, like artwork? The amount and substantiality of the use. How much of the copyrighted work does someone want to use? Now, even with a song, if you go use 7 measures or 7 bars of a song, that's considered fair use. Once you pass 8 bars, they're probably going to nail you. Even if it's only a little bit, if it's the heart of the work, that might not be eligible for a fair use defense. And in the case, my sweet Lord, ooh, my Lord, that was the heart of the work, and it was the exact same tune that they were using. So that's why it wasn't fair use. And like I said, I'm sure he did that purely by accident, because that does happen. The effect on the market by using a copyrighted work in a proposed way, is that going to be competing with the original author? Don't want to do that. And what effect will that have on the greater market? These are questions about every factor when it comes to fair use in AI, said Christian Mammon, an intellectual property lawyer in San Francisco, office managing partner at Womble Bond Dickinson. There's also a debate about whether the fair use factors apply to the AI input, output, or both. So I'm not going to go through the rest of that, but I just wanted to let you guys know, with this whole AI business, there's a lot of arguments about copyright stuff and fair use. So it's just something I think we should all be aware of. Let's see comments here. Don says, I see a correlation between copywriting and OEMs and AI copyright. Yes, so do I, absolutely. Don also said, I got the Air this week, so he got the iPhone Air. I see that OnePlus completely copies Apple's action button. Yes, they did. I mean, it's so close you can't hardly tell any difference. My first iPhone in about 3 years. Good for you. I hope you like it. Even though neither Air, the Samsungs or iPhones is selling well at all, everybody that I've seen that has either one seems to like them a lot. So I hope you do too. He said, welcome to the dark side, Don. Just kidding. She said, Finally upgraded mine, loving the new one. Yeah, I love my iPhone 17. All right, she's saying good night. Fiance's home from his business. Good. Hallelujah for the week. Everyone have a blessed, and you have a blessed one too, Ellie. Glad you were here. Okay. So that's the copyright one. Again, I just thought it was a good one for us to have some awareness of. So let's get out of that one. The EU is fishing for a ban on Huawei and ZTE networks. And keep in mind, this is not the phones, this is networks. And those two, oh boy. I'm not going to be able to show it because Phone Arena is doing maintenance. Never saw that happen before. But in any case, the EU wants to ban their networks. And as far as I know, both Huawei and ZTE are some of the best in the world at putting up 5G networks. And I think most of Europe's networks that are already there, those, were put there by those two. So the fact that they want to ban it is pretty heavy duty. It's going to cost them a lot of money to replace them, I'm sure. But I'm going to try once more. Oh, all of a sudden we can get to the article. That was very strange. All right. Huawei is about to get banned in the EU. The European Commission wants to force its 2020 recommendation. So they were thinking about banning them back in 2020, just like happened here in the United States. But they hadn't done it as yet. So this was published 3 days ago. So let's go into review. The European Commission is moving towards a region-wide ban on Huawei and ZTE from Europe's telecommunications networks. Huawei's exclusion wouldn't directly affect its smartphones or its consumer devices, at least not for now. The potential ban targets network hardware such as antennas, routers, and core systems that power mobile and broadband services, not end-user products. Sounds like a plan. Why they showed the phone, I don't know, because this had nothing to do with phones. Per Bloomberg, the Commission Vice President Henna Virkkunen is now seeking to turn the EU's 2020 recommendation, which advised countries to avoid high-risk vendors in their mobile infrastructure, into a binding legal requirement. If implemented, this would compel all 27, and get this, would compel all 27 EU member states to remove Huawei and ZTE equipment from their 5G and fixed line networks or face potential legal and financial consequences, which I find very strange because the EU is not like the United States. Every country is its own individual company. So how the EU can force them and punish them, I don't see how they can do that. This is one of the big problems they have with Hungary, because Hungary is always stating that they're independent, and the EU doesn't like that. The security of our 5G networks is crucial for our economy. European Commission spokesman Thomas Regner, November 2025. While decisions over telecom infrastructure typically rest with national governments, the Commission's plan would centralize the rules, effectively limiting each country's autonomy. And that's the thing, each country has autonomy in choosing suppliers. I don't know how they can pass rules on each country. The proposal comes amid growing political and economic tensions, between the EU and China, with Brussels increasingly concerned about security implications of relying on Chinese technology in critical national infrastructure, same as the argument we had here. We've heard this one before. In 2019, the U.S. imposed pretty heavy restrictions on Huawei, also on ZTE, but much more on Huawei. Europe is already vulnerable. The move represents one of the EU's strongest attempts yet to reduce dependence on Chinese technology. European officials argued that Huawei's close ties to Beijing could expose local networks to espionage or sabotage risk. Critics of the company say that allowing Chinese vendors to remain in Europe's telecom backbone gives the Chinese government leverage in a region already wary of trade imbalances and strategic vulnerabilities. On the other hand, Huawei and Chinese officials have dismissed the security narrative, calling the restrictions politically motivated. What else would they say? What they could be right, I don't know. They argue that banning established cost-effective suppliers will only drive up expensive and slow down Europe's 5G rollout. And that's probably very true because they have been rolling it out for years now. Pardon me. The European Commission is also exploring ways to push non-EU countries to follow suit. One idea involves withholding key EU development funding tools from nations that use Chinese telecom equipment in EU-supported projects. That's pretty democratic. Another brick in the wall. Now, of course, as soon as I saw that earlier, my mind went, we don't need no education. Too many years singing in bands. For regular consumers, this doesn't mean Huawei phones will suddenly vanish from stores. However, it does show that the brand is slowly stepping back from Western markets. If the EU goes through with the ban, Huawei's future in Europe may depend on how well it can shift its focus away from network equipment and towards other parts of its business. Yeah, because networking has been the major part of its business in Europe. So, just wanted to go over that because I think it's an interesting story, and it's always interesting what the EU is trying to do with the different OEMs and manufacturers. And I've got one more story left. I said, as more and more Android EMs copy iPhone, one writer objects. This is going back to the Androids. I get a lot are copying Android. That's an Android phone, but it looks like an iPhone because they're copying the liquid glass, basically. So let's go into phone arena again. I love the title. Help, my Android phone just adopted liquid glass without my consent. Vivo, Oppo, and Xiaomi, count your days, by Peter Kostadinov. So let's drop into reader view. I thought the title was brilliant, though. It's late 2025, and my Android phone once again looks like it's running iOS. This time, it's without my consent. My favorite OS is in yet another episode of its long-running identity crisis, and this time around, it's not Google's fault at all. Most Android phone makers have once again gone out of their way to emulate Apple, this time by blatantly copying the new liquid glass design language in their latest. That's true, they are, as you can see with the OnePlus 15. Android 16 software updates with translucency and semi-opaque menu sliders, lock screen clock faces, dialog boxes, and other interface elements. Yeah, it looks just like the iPhone. That's a slap in the face, given that Android had a perfectly decent and fairly fresh new design language called Material 3 Expressive. Yeah, it's only been since the Pixels came out. It comes with a bold. I'm not sure what he meant to say there. Comes with a bold and flat aesthetic that feels, maybe at once, comes with a bold and flat aesthetic that feels like the logical continuation of previous Android releases, and honestly has a lot to love in terms of look. So he thought they should have stuck much more with Material 3. Yes, it's criminally underused on any device apart from a Pixel phone. That's true. Help, my Android has contracted liquid glass. I love the way he makes it sound like a disease. Here's liquid glass and Android 16 side by side. Let's see, I've got to drop out reader view, let you guys see that. So let's do that. Yeah. So here they are side by side in the layout, and this one really shows it, and you can really see. Yeah, I mean, they're really copying iPhone big time. It's very, very obvious. I just wanted to let you guys see that. All right, back into Reader View. I think we're going to be able to drop into Reader View again. Yes. Okay. I've opted to prove my point by showcasing the quick toggles panel. That was the first one you saw, as it most clearly demonstrates which direction most of the popular phone makers have headed for. And here are some of the quick panel toggles. That's the three I showed you. Of all the latest Android 16 phones that I have access to. Of these, Vivo and Oppo are the biggest offenders. Their quick settings panels not only employ the same split-like quick panel, but lean heavily into that glass aesthetic that feels old. Already it feels old? Sure, both have done a better job than Apple at delivering a cohesive and actually legible interface. Seems that Apple was unable to deliver on the accessibility front. I think I need to drop it out of this and stay on this so we can keep looking at what we need to look at as far as the phone examples he's showing. So let's get back here. None of the Xiaomi flagships at the office have received a Hyper OS 3 software update, I guess, yet. But it is also heavily leaning into the iOS 26-esque aesthetic too, with little to no visual comebacks to Material 3 Express. So he feels like they're just abandoning Material 3, and looking at them, that does seem to be the case. Samsung's One UI is its own thing, not employing the design language of Android 16, but not doing the lazy copying of iOS either. This is definitely the happy middle ground that should be the norm, not the exception. Come for the hardware, leave for the software. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely adore Chinese Android flagships. When I'm not daily driving a specific phone for review, you'll usually find the Vivo X200 Pro or Oppo Find N5 in my pockets. The hardware, the overall value, the battery life, the camera versatility is unmatched on devices hailing from China, unlike Apple, Google, and Samsung's best products right now. And I'd go as far as saying that this is not my subjective opinion, but a pretty obvious fact. However, my biggest problem with these exceptional great value devices is the software, which is almost always the weakest link. The big issue for me is the constant chase to emulate iOS and mindlessly copy all of its features. I don't want that. That's whack. If I wanted to use iOS, I'd take the completely logical step and pick up an iPhone. It makes sense. I didn't put my SIM card inside a Vivo phone because I wanted to enjoy its own take on the tired or liquid glass design, which looks so old already. I got the Vivo because it has the most versatile camera on a phone. As much as the overall value proposition and hardware entice me, the software is decidedly off-putting. Boy, he really dislikes liquid glass. Is it so challenging to come up with your design language that's everything but similar to the latest software attempts of Apple's crack developer team responsible for iOS? Is there no other aesthetic you could have chosen instead of liquid glass? If Apple jumps, would you jump too? Google laid out the perfect groundwork with Material 3 Expressive in Android 16, yet Android manufacturers tossed out the concept along with the bathwater, and that speaks ill of Android's identity as a platform. Phone makers, you can do better. So he really doesn't like all this copying of iOS. So I just thought that was a very well-written article. But that's all I've got for tonight, folks. And thanks for those who came in, for everybody. And thanks to our Renz and Brian, as always, for their donations. Thanks for everybody who commented. And always keep the discussion going. That just in case you have anything else to say, I try to remember to take them in at the end, just in case anybody wants to say anything else. So as I'm signing off, if you guys type anything in, I will stop and let you continue whatever discussion you want. But other than that, I hope everybody has a blessed weekend and has a blessed week. And as I'm prone to saying, let's remember we all do better when we love each other. And I will sign off with, come on, people now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Good night, folks.